Hi there guys, my name is Brit from the Fools Who Duel, and I'm here to show you my updated Divine Dragon deck profile. So, I was going to do a recording with Adam, another one of our team at Fools Who Duel. However, when I got to thinking about it, I wanted to rebuild the deck, restructure a little bit. So this is what I've come up with. It's a mix between my old Divine Dragon deck profile, which is on the channel from about a year ago, whoops, and it's a mix from the new Destruction Dragon card, which comes out in the Legendary Collection Kaiba, of which I took a lot of inspiration from this deck from a deck list that Team Sam from Team Samurai did. Check him out, it's a pretty good YouTube channel. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, start with why I call this Divine Dragons. Felgrand, Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand. Unlike my last build, I only run 2 copies of him in this, because I can see him pretty often. I can see him pretty much whenever I need him, and 3 might be a bit much. I mean, I love Felgrand, he's one of my favourite dragons, but I think 3 at this point is a bit much. So his effect is, if you special summon from the graveyard, I can target a monster my opponent controls or is in their graveyard, banish it, and then increase his attack points for 100 times the level or rank of that monster. So that's pretty good, so that could get him really high, make him a really high beta. And on top of that, if he destroys a monster by battle, I can then special summon another level 7 or 8 dragon type monster from the graveyard. So that is really good. The only issue with that is I can't do another Felgrand, but a lot of cards have that sort of clause on it. So yeah. Next up, I play 2 copies of Archbrave, who I like to think is a partner in crime to Felgrand. So if it's special summoned from the graveyard, I can banish as many face-up spell traps that the opponent controls as possible, which is really nice, getting rid of that tricky back row. And he gains 200 attack for every 1 banished, so that's pretty good. On top of that, if he was sent to the graveyard, if he's in the graveyard because he was sent there last turn, during the standby phase of the current turn, you can special summon a level 7 or 8 dragon type monster. So it's really good, obviously not another copy of himself. So what I like doing is using something like Foolish Burial or Dragon's Ravine. My favourite is Dragon's Ravine, so what I will do normally is pitch one of these 2, whichever I've got in hand for the cost, and then send the other one. Then during my opponent's standby phase, his effect will go off, giving me Felgrand. So it's a nice little way of getting Felgrand out on the field quite early. And if not Felgrand, if something else is more applicable, then obviously I'll go for that instead. But it's a nice way of getting something on board if you don't have a way to get something out during your turn. So yeah, next up, because it's working with the Destruction Dragon stuff and a lot of the Blue Eyes support works with that, I'm running 3 copies of Blue Eyes. Now I run 3 different variations of Blue Eyes because I like having various artworks. But yeah, Blue Eyes, one of the strongest vanillas in the entire game. Why wouldn't you run it in a dragon deck? If you've got the potential to make something with it and do stuff with it, run Blue Eyes. It's just good, and the Blue Eyes engine is really nice. So next up, I run 2 copies of Blue Eyes Alternate White Dragon. He's very powerful and he's very useful. He can't be normal summoned. He's got to be special summoned from the hand. So by doing this, you will reveal a Blue Eyes and special summon this guy. Very simple and easy way to get him out on the field. On top of that, once per turn, yawning. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster the opponent controls and just straight out destroy it. So yeah, that is a really useful ability to have if you have a very tough monster that you can't get over on the opponent's side of the field. He can't attack the turn that uses his effect, but I'd say it's an even trade, to be fair. Next up, I play 2 copies of Dragon Spirit of White. He's always classed as a Blue Eyes monster, which is really good. He's classed as a normal when in hand or in grave. And when he's normal special summoned, you can target one spell trap the opponent controls, banish it during... just banish it, and then during either player's turn, if the opponent controls a monster, I contribute this card, special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from my hand. So I could bring this back, get rid of something that I think is going to be an issue, or something that I might have a little bit of trouble with later, and then tribute him, and then just go and get an even stronger monster on board. And he's another level 8 light dragon, just like Blue Eyes, just like alternate, so it's like really, really good to have. I like the phrase really, really, if you haven't noticed. So next up, I place 2 copies of Sage with Eyes of Blue. Some decks play 3, however 2, I find it just works for me. I prefer having 2. So if you don't know what Sage does, instead of being a dragon, he's a spellcaster. And when he's normal summoned, you can add 1 light tuner monster from deck to hand. So this will be White Stone of Legend. So obviously you can't add another copy of himself. So summon him, add White Stone. Sorry. And then you can tribute. You can discard this card to target 1 effect monster I control, send it to the graveyard, and special summon 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon, I believe it is. Let me just double check. Yes. Target an effect monster and send it to the graveyard to then special summon Blue Eyes. So it's like a trade-off. A little bit like Spirit of White, where you except instead of tributing itself, it's tributing another effect monster you've got on board. So it's a pretty nice level 1 tuner, pretty useful to have. Next up, I play 2 copies of White Stone of Legend, because it works with Sage with Eyes of Blue. So once per turn during the end phase, if this card is sent to the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, sorry, if it's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn even, you can special summon 1 Blue Eyes monster from your deck, so it's really good. So that would be Blue Eyes White Dragon, or Spirit with Eyes of Blue. I can't remember the name of the card. What was it? Sorry, Dragon Spirit of White, even Spirit with Eyes of Blue. Don't know where I got that from. So it's really useful. On top of that, you can banish this card from the graveyard to target 1 Blue Eyes monster you control. 1 Blue Eyes monster in your graveyard. Add it to hand. You can only use that effect of this card once per turn as well. So you gotta sort of know what you're gonna do, and it's very versatile. And it's a nice card to have. And I'll show you what I like to do in a sec. I'll show you a little combo I like once I go through the deck. Next up, I play the King of D, 1 copy. So I like this because it can add when its name becomes Lord of D. But when this card's normal summoned, you can discard a spell trap and add Flute Summoning Dragon, Melody of Awakening Dragons, or Dragon Revival Rhapsody from deck to hand. So it's a nice way of getting the Lord, it's really like the Lord of D support stuff. Though it works amazingly well with Blue Eyes, but it's associated with Lord of D. So yeah, I run 1 copy of him. He's a little bit... He doesn't slow the deck down, per se, but there are times where I think, would I rather have a Maiden with Eyes of Blue, or try and get another Sage, or another White Stone of Ancients, or something. So I recently just built this deck, and I've had a couple games with it, and it is working, and it is doing pretty well. It's just there are some times where I think, is this really what I want? Could I not have something different? Maybe another spell card instead? But it works pretty well, it works fine, and yeah, so that's why I've got 1 copy of it. It doesn't brick too much if I'm only running 1 copy. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of Blue Eyes Chaos Max. Now, some people wouldn't say I do a Destruction Chaos Max deck, however, the way I've built the deck, it sort of works, and the small little engine I've got to get Chaos Max, it's not it's not, obviously it's not the best engine, but it works and I'm happy with it. And it's just a fun deck to play, so I go for it. So with Chaos Max, obviously it's a ritual monster, so it's got to be used with Chaos form. It can't be special summoned by other means. It also cannot be targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects, so it's really nice. So it's got a very, very good protection. It's a very, very good protection. And on top of that, if it were to attack a defense position monster, it does double piercing. So you attack a monster with 0 defense, that is game right there. So it's a very, very powerful card. And my last monster, or monsters, is Manju of the Thousand Hands. So this is what I like using to get my Chaos Max and my spell card. Because when he's normal summoned, you can, or flip summoned, you can add one ritual monster or ritual spell card from deck to hand. So if I have one in hand, I can get to the other by summoning him. So it's really nice to have in the deck. So next up, I play 2 copies of Chaos Form. So obviously Chaos Form gets me my Chaos Max. So obviously it's sending monsters that equal the level of the monster that I want to summon from hand or field. But on top of that, I can banish Blue Eyes White Dragon from the graveyard instead if I wanted to as well. I don't normally do that because I normally have fodder in hand for it, but it's nice to have that as a little extra just in case, just for a backup. And then I play Melody of Awakening Dragons ×2. So discard a card, add up to 2 dragon type monsters with 3,000 or more attack and 2,500 or less defense. This includes Chaos Max if you weren't aware. So Chaos Max is searchable by this card as well. So the only thing that's not searchable for the Chaos Max engine in this deck is Chaos Form, which is why I run Manju to specifically search it out. That makes sense. Like, it's not searchable by some sort of other support card, it needs Manju to be searched. Whereas Chaos Max, I can use this to search it as well as Manju. And it can also give me alternate as well. So say I haven't got any of the Chaos stuff in hand and I don't want to waste this by trying to get stuff, I can instead get a Blue Eyes and an alternate and special summon alternate and have something on board still. That's pretty nice. I play 1 copy of Dragon Revival Rhapsody. Gotta see if I can remember what this does. So if I control spellcaster type monsters, so I run 3 of those in this deck. I run 2 I run 2 Sage and I run 1 King of D. So you can target 2 dragon type monsters in your graveyard, including at least 1 normal monster. So one of them has to be either Blue Eyes White Dragon or Spirit of White, because Spirit of White's class as a normal dragon in graveyard. I think. Yes, yeah. So it's got to be Blue Eyes or Spirit of White. I have to target one of those 2 with this. Special summon those targets, and then your opponent takes no damage for the rest of this turn. So it's giving me very powerful monsters, but my opponent's not going to take any damage this turn. But I could always fusion them off, or link them off, or exes them off, or whatever. And you can only activate 1 of these per turn. So it's a nice way of gaining those resources for your next turn. I like to think of it as a dragon-specific version of Soul Charge, except instead of losing your battle phase, your opponent takes no damage instead, so you can't like OTK them or anything like that. I'd say it's a relatively even trade. Instead of paying life points, for however many, you're specifically limited to 2, and your opponent takes no damage instead of you not having a battle phase. So yeah, if I wasn't going to run this, I would run Soul Charge instead, but I prefer this, and it works nicer with dragons, and it's searchable from King of D. So next up, Revival. So, with Revival stuff, I play 3 copies of Return of the Dragon Lords. quite simply, special summon a level 7 or level 8 dragon type monster from the graveyard. Really, really powerful effect for this deck, and on top of that, I can banish this card from graveyard to stop any dragons I control being destroyed. Note, dragons, not just dragon. So, if I had Blue Eyes, Felgrand, Spirit of White, and whatever other dragon on board, if my opponent Dark Holes me, Torrential Tributes me, whatever, banish this, and it's not destroyed. They're unharmed, they stay on the field. So it's really nice to have. It's a nice line of defense. Next up, draw power. So I run 3 copies of Trade-In. For some reason, what I've found is I will activate a Trade-In and draw into another Trade-In. Now, I'm not too bothered by that because deck thinning. However, it can be a bit annoying sometimes when I'm looking for a specific card. But I run 3 copies of Trade-In. I don't run any Pot of Desires. It's something I am dabbling with this deck. Do I run a Desires? Do I not? But it seems to work pretty well. Next, I play 2 copies of Dragon Ravine. This allows me to discard a card and activate one of the 2 effects. Now, one of them adds a level 4 lower Drag Unity from deck to hand. Don't run any Drag Unities in this deck, so I'm specifically going for ditching one from hand and ditching one from deck. So what I'll do with this is I will often have... So what I like doing with this is a little combo where I will I'll normal summon this to add... I'll normal summon Sage. I will add Stone. I'll have a Ravine activated. And what I'll do is I will pitch this and send something else to graveyard, probably an Archbrave Dragon. Yeah, probably like an Archbrave Dragon. And that gives me mode to go off of if it's mid-game. If it's not, what I would do instead is, instead of pitching it on Dragon's Ravine, I would pitch White Stone. I would summon Sage, pitch White Stone, and have it work with my Melody of Awakening Dragon instead. So yeah, that's what I would do instead. I would pitch it for Melody of Awakening Dragon, and then add Blue Eyes and an alternate from deck to hand, or Chaos Max, or whatever it is that I need to complete my combo for that turn. Yeah, that's just a nice little thing I like doing with Ravine. I've got to find where I've put these now. And so, because I run 2 copies of Ravine, I run 1 copy of Terraforming. I run 1 copy of Terraforming because I am a believer that at some point or another, this thing is going to get banned or limited. And I want to be ready for when it does, by not relying on it too much for deck thinning purposes. If this ever did get hit or banned, I would run the trap card. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Metaverse or something like that. It's basically a trap version of Terraforming, so it's slower, but it does exactly the same thing. And I would run that instead of Terraforming. However, not banned yet, so Terraforming stays. Next, I play 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This deck relies really heavily on filling the graveyard and specialing back from graveyard, so not having Foolish Burial is a bit daft in my opinion, because it's really, really useful to have. Can pitch pretty much any monster that I want in graveyard and get me started. 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because it's off the ban list, so I might as well use it. I think this is going to get hit at some point. I reckon it's going to head back onto the ban list, but I don't think it's going to be in the April or May ban lists. So for now, it's staying in the deck. Obviously, Monster Reborn reborns a monster from my graveyard or my opponent's graveyard and gives me control of it if it's from the opponent's. But yeah. Next up, because as I've mentioned, I'm running the Destruction Dragon stuff in this deck. 2 copies of the Fang of Critias. Unfortunately, this thing is not searchable at all, which really, really sucks. What I do is I can target a trap card from my hand or my field and send to the graveyard, and whatever, if that trap is listed on a fusion monster, I can special summon said fusion monster as if it's been fusion summoned. If it's set, reveal it. So yeah, I'd special summon that fusion monster from the extra deck. I can only activate this card once per turn. So this works with my Loop of Destruction and Ring of Destruction. So Loop of Destruction's effect is... let's make sure that they're all in frame there. So Loop of Destruction, its name becomes Ring of Destruction when it's on the field. And once per turn, if a monster or monsters on the field is destroyed by a card effect, except during the damage step, I can target one monster on the field, destroy it, and if I do, each player takes 500 damage. So it's a nice way of just burning through some more damage. In Ring of Destruction, target one face-up monster your opponent controls, whose attack is less than or equal to the life points. Less to your opponent's life points, and destroy it. And if I do, each player takes damage. If you do take damage to its original attack, then inflict damage equal to the attack on the opponent. So I would take the damage first, then the opponent takes damage. By the way, you're destroying a monster and doing damage to you and your opponent with its attack. Original attack. So what's nice with this is it works. So this works with alternate dragon. So if I destroy something with absolute, this is then going to burn me and my opponent for 500. Destruction dragon as well. Target a card the opponent controls, destroy it. If it's a monster, inflict damage equal to its attack. So I've done damage equal to its attack, and then this is going to do an extra 500 as well. So it's a nice little thing to have there. So that is all my spells and my traps. I think that's a 41 card deck. I could make it 40, but I don't feel any difference, to be honest. And now my extra deck. So this has changed a bit since the last deck profile. So what I do is I run 2 copies of Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. One of these used to be a First of Dragons, but Twin Burst is just nicer in my opinion. So I can special summon it using 2 Blue Eyes monsters I control instead of using a poly. So that's so much easier, and it removes one of the spaces in the deck, so I can use something better. Can't be special summoned any other way, so once it's out by that, that's it. If it goes to graveyard, can't bring it back. It also can't be destroyed by battle, which is really, really nice, so it's a nice staple. It's a good defensive wall, and it can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, so again, doing that damage pushing for those hits. And at the end of the damage step, if it were to attack an opponent's monster but it wasn't destroyed, I can then banish that monster instead. So that is really, really, really good to see. So it gets past really hard to break through walls. So it's a nice little card to have. I don't know why people... For some reason, this card I don't think people like too much, and I don't understand why. I think it's a pretty decent card. And I mean, if you think about other twin cards, like say Cyber Twin Dragon, this card comes across as better to me, like way, way better. So I don't know why you get so much like crap from the community. But yeah, so I run 2 Burst. I run 2 Destruction. So obviously, if this once per turn, I can target a card the opponent controls, destroy it. Then if it was a monster card, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. So that's a nice way of burning through damage. And on top of that, that says card, not monster. So if I wanted to, I could get rid of back row that I'm unsure of. So it's a lot more versatile than the likes of Ring of Destruction and Loop of Destruction. So that's really good to see. On top of that, it's a very defensive monster, as you can see, with 3,000 defense. Well, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, just 3,000 defense, 2,000 attack. So it is a lot more of a stone wall rather than an attacking force. but I think that's to be expected considering the fact that you're doing damage equal to the original attack of whatever monster you've just destroyed. So I run 2 copies of him. I run another 2 copies of Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. So this card is a nice stable in Blue Eyes decks. So neither player can special summon 2 monsters or more at the same time. So screws over Pendulum, which is really good at this stage, with Pendulum Magicians being quite dominant. And then during either player's turn, when an effect of a card in the graveyard is activated, I can negate that effect, I believe it is. Let me just have a double check. Yeah, in the graveyard, I can negate the activation. And also, if this card was synchro summoned during either player's turn, I contribute it to special summon any other light dragon type synchro monster from the extra deck in defense, except another copy of itself. The only catch with that is it's destroyed during the end phase. However, the likes of Azure Silver Dragon, when this card is special summoned, until the end of the turn, neither player can target dragon monsters I currently control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by card effects. So, if I were to bring out Silver Dragon, Azure Eyes, using Blue Eye Spirit, he wouldn't be destroyed. So he would stay on the field, which is really good. And also, once per turn during the standby phase, I can target a normal monster in graveyard special summon, so that gives me back Blue Eyes and it gives me back my Spirit of White. So it's a pretty basic card, but it is pretty strong, and I'd argue it's pretty underrated, to be honest, in modern formats. It's nice, it works pretty well, keeps things, I'd say traditional, but traditional Blue Eyes is going for ultimate, so Next up, I play 1 copy of Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. I run this because it's a nice disruption. I can bring it out with Spirit of White. Not Spirit of White, Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. If it's special summoned, or at level 5 or higher, monster is special summoned to my opponent's side of the field. Target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls. Return that target to the hand. So that's really nice to see. So it can bounce things. It's disruption. And I can target to hand. I can only use this effect once per turn, so that's not too bad. If I bring it out with Spirit, it's going to get destroyed at the end of the turn anyway, so I might as well get its effect off and bounce something. Some might ask me why I don't play Ancient Fairy Dragon. The simple answer to that is I can't find my copy. That is the really simple answer to that. Next, I play Small Galaxy Engine. So, go into Prime Photon Dragon, and then from Prime, go straight into Galaxy Eyes Dark Matter Dragon, or as my friends call it, Doesn't Matter Dragon. So, this thing is literally just fodder to get into this. So Doesn't Matter Dragon's effect, when it's XYZ summoned, I can send 3 dragon type monsters with different names from my deck to the graveyard. Very nice for this deck, and it forces my opponent to banish 3 cards in their deck. And on top of that, I can attach 1 XYZ material from this card for it to have up to 2 attacks, I believe, on monsters. Let me have a double check. Yeah. So it can attack up to 2 monsters the turn that I detach 1. So it's really nice to see. Next, I play number 23, Lancelot, Dark Knight of the Underworld. Just generic 2 level 8s. So when he attacks an opponent... he can attack an opponent directly while he has XYZ material attached to him, which is really nice. And when he does inflict battle damage to the opponent, I can target 1 face-up monster the opponent controls, destroy it. So again, it works really well with Loop of Destruction, because it gets me another destruction, gets me another 500 damage in. All that damage helps. Once per turn during either player's turn, when a spell, trap card or monster effect is activated, detach one material from this card and negate the activation. So as you notice, that is a once per turn effect and it is a compulsory effect. It doesn't say you can, so I have to detach one. And that's not too bad because it then doesn't make it overpowered to the point of, yes, if I keep this on board, I then have 4 direct attacks, which will then give me game. So it's not too bad. I understand why it's like that, and still having negations on field is pretty good to have. I'm not going to turn my nose up at that. Two negations. Yep, happy with that. Next up, I play a couple links. So I play Link Spider because Blue Eyes is a normal monster. Gets me Link Spider very, very easily. Why else? I might replace him eventually when I have a better Link monster. However, I'm a budget player, I'm a uni student, so I don't have money to go out and just buy much better like Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So for the minute, Link Spider is the one I've got. I also play Binary Sorceress. Again, I go for budget decks. I'm a cheap Yu-Gi-Oh player. If I can, I would switch this with Proxy Dragon, but at the same time, it does its job. It gives me the extra link zones that I want, so I'm not too bothered by it at the minute. And last but not least, the big staple of links is Decode Talker, because it's just 2 effect monsters plus whatever else. So if you don't know what he does, he gains 500 attack for each monster. It points to when the opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card I control, I contribute one of the monsters it points to negate the activation if I do destroy that card. So again, it's a bit of a disruptor, it negates things, so that's pretty nice. And contributing things, that's not a big deal for me because I can bring them back really, really easily. So with that is my Divine Dragon deck. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think we should do next. Is there any decks that you guys want us to have a look at, or do you want us to go over some of our other decks? So for example, I have Black Wings, I have Odd Eyes, I even have Performer Pal still. I love my Performer Pal deck. So yeah, give it a like, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.